Hey, you've made it to SprySpace, where people managing social media accounts come for community. This year, our focus is social media for good. Together, we can work to make social media a landscape for healthy online communities to grow. Sound good? Then come along with us on the SprySpace podcast, where we share what we know, learn what we don't, and strive to make social media better for us all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SprySpace podcast. I'm Lacey J, and this month we're focused on educators using social media for good. With me today is Nathan Webster. Nathan is a business professor at multiple colleges and is the founder of NW & Associates, a group of family-first marketing experts focused on consulting, marketing, and websites. Now, Nathan also hosts a podcast called Let's Talk Marketing, which I may very well be on at some point in the near future. But I'm grateful to have you here today. Nathan, how are you doing?
Oh, you're so awesome, Lacey. Yes, you're going to be on the show for sure.
I'm so excited.
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on the SprySpace podcast. Thank you.
You're welcome. So before we get into kind of the meat of it, I like to start with a question focused around social media for good. If social media is going to be a good part of our life, what good is it if it can't spark some joy in us? So tell me a piece of content that you've seen recently that brought you joy.
I think it's the stuff that my wife sends me about her being a Leo or her being nosy, or just like comic-y little skits like folks have done on
TikTok. I knew where you were going. So you've been enjoying the TikTok platform?
I don't like anyone. I don't or follow. I don't like any piece of content. I'm trying to keep it very basic, but anything that promotes authenticity and folks being who they are, especially in this social space more than ever before, because this is now truly a way of life that 10 years ago we wouldn't have predicted. I like being around or not being around because you're not around it, but scrolling through that content.
We had a couple months ago a woman named Gia Goodrich on the show, and she was one of the panelists on our Social Media for Good forum too. She's based out of Portland, and the content she's putting out on TikTok, I think you would love. She talks a lot about how to let people know that you're a big deal. Basically how to talk about yourself authentically in a way that is true to your big deal-ness. So Gia Goodrich, check her out. I like her very much.
How do you spell her name?
Gia, G-I-A, and then good, and then rich.
Rich. All right. Oh, how that sounds. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk teaching for a minute. So you teach business at the college level. Tell me about what it's like working with students in this capacity right now.
I will first start off with the caveat as I'm an adjunct. Mm-hmm. Basically, which means, for those that don't know, it's a contractor, which means in a lot of ways I finally get paid the same as the ones that are tenure, but we basically don't get paid for all the work that is done, nor do we have the same perks and bennies. I'm saying that to say is to me that is not that big of a deal because it's not where I'm basing my career off of. But for the students, they don't realize it. And so their expectations are a bit different. So this has been quite difficult in the last 5 years because the educational model that we have is just broken. As we saw a couple of universities going defunct. I know the federal government has gave them some lifesavers, but I don't know how much that is going to last for some businesses. I know, Bezos' ex-wife has saved countless HBCUs with her donations and gifts. But at the end of the day, when it comes to dealing with students, they are now looking, and which they should be, for a return on their time and the investment that's going to put them in tens and tens of thousands of dollars of debt. that is not guaranteed. So we as an education institution we have to do better. And students are demanding that. And unfortunately, we don't have the answer. So it's great because some students, which are some non-traditional and traditional students, this is what they need. And school is the best place for folks that don't know the next step. And so just like for myself, it was the next best step for me. But I'm a critic, but at the same time, I love our students. It keeps me coming back to teaching. And for those students that are hungry, it's such a joy to be there to give them that opportunity, to give them the roots and the shade they need to grow. And I will say block out the shade from the haters.
So you're teaching specifically business-focused curriculum. So, obviously there's like a syllabus that you follow and that kind of thing. But as a professor, is there a certain underlying message that you're trying to that you really hope your students take away from classes with you to kind of prepare them to start going into business?
Absolutely. I do my best to not have them focus so much on earning an A. I can't tell you how many students earn A's and earn the degree, but then they can't get a job. So that is I tell them, don't come to me asking for help so you can get an A grade. I'm not saying A's are not important. It is important for GPA and for scholarships and for going to the next step in their academic journey. But I always stress that they understand the content that's being taught and how they can apply it to real world deliverables.
I think that's such a good point. I got a lot of really good grades through college, but there's only a few classes that I feel like I really took something from that I really used throughout my career. Editing, like how to properly edit content. I feel like that's the carry through piece that I've gotten through, like the weed out journalism classes that I was in when I was in college, is like how to properly edit content. That's the one thing I've pulled and used through my whole career. And it's the worst grade I got. And taught me the absolute most.
It's what they say, L's are not losses, is learning opportunity. And I think, especially in this year, that it has been very difficult for students because it definitely disrupted their learning. But part of their learning was on a system almost like a hamster wheel where it was on autopilot, and they weren't grabbing the things that were necessary. So to your point, there are certain skills that you get in classes that if you're not attuned to, you'll miss it and wish like, oh man, I wish I could go back to that because I need that now.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your company now. So NW and Associates is your company. Who does your company serve and what are you all great at over there?
So NW and Associates started off as a nonprofit consultancy as we evolved to a marketing agency because we were helping nonprofits. The idea was to help nonprofits, but then we started doing websites and then marketing plans and then social media and then surveys, building databases. A lot of the things that at the end of the day, my subcontractor said, Nathan, we need to stop saying we're a nonprofit consultancy. We're a marketing agency. And so from that time, rebranded. So we do consulting on the business dev side with everything with a marketing lens. Then, of course, marketing and then website. So as I like to tell my customers, we do everything in the aspect to where you can only take what you kill and you kill what you eat. And if we're not doing it in a way where there's a return, where you get the kill, where you can take it home to your home, your family, and for the profit margin, then we are not the best fit for you.
How long have you had the business that you're running?
6 years.
Good job. You're almost to the point where most marriages fail, right? You hit that 7-year mark. You're almost there, man.
True.
Just soar past that one, you know.
Woo! Yeah, we're gonna keep going.
Do you think that, because I listened to one of your podcasts from 2 years ago too about entrepreneurship versus a job, and I wondered if part of your choice to kind of choose business curriculum to teach is based around this idea of the importance of entrepreneurship. How much have you enjoyed owning your own business and working for yourself this last 6 years?
Whew, that's a great question, Lacey. I love it. You know, there's a lot of benefits that I love from it, but as you know, it is a constant, not grind of what people put in grind. It's you're always operating differently than somebody else, and you got to catch yourself. So to be in the space, it's hard work. There's no such thing as burnout, right?
I know. My employees, they ask me, they're like, Lacey, I'm feeling a little burnt out. I'm like, great, go on vacation. Let's manage this. And they're like, don't you ever feel burnt out? I'm like, it's not really. I just keep going.
It's not an option. I'm burnt out, man. I'm burnt the hell out. But guess what? I got to keep going. And there's no other option. You know, sometimes I play Lil Wayne Fireman, you know, because it's like, I'm burning. I'm on fire, but we got to keep going, baby.
Yeah, we don't burn out. We just burn and burn and burn and burn.
Burn to where it creates another layer of protection. And I think as in, you know, it's funny, a quick backstory was in, man, I'm dating myself now. In 1999, I had someone come to me and ask for some money to go in, which was a family member, and to go in on a business idea. I said, sure. Long story short, it didn't work out, but that really was the impetus of me looking into another opportunity than a 9-to-5. I was in the military, and I was like, oh, I can make extra money. Someone does the work. Okay, this, you know, passive income. And ever since that, well, I will also say, when I was working during school, I worked at Nike Security, and I got a chance to sit in Nike's jets. And I will never forget that feeling of like, oh, how can I get this for myself? As someone says, you can't get there working a 9-to-5.
So do you have a jet yet?
Not as today. So y'all follow back up with me in about 10 years.
You got it. You got it. Once you hit that 16-year mark, right? I got you. Okay, so I'm going to pull us into my favorite focus, which is social media. So talk to me about what role social media plays for you in your life, your business, your brand.
Yeah, you know, secret. It is basically it is a hidden secret for a lot of companies if they don't when they are not doing it right, and they're wondering like, because it's an awesome touch point in the funnel. But for us, it's been a great opportunity to really leverage our strengths and focus on the folks that we really want to work with. Social media, as I tell folks, and as you know, Lacey, you can go spend 2 hours going to a networking event, hoping to speak to, 2-3 people, get some really warm leads, or you can spend 2 hours and doing that in ads on these social channels and get hot leads. And you might think it's a warm lead when you're networking, but it's really a cold lead. They were just trying to play the networking game. But the hot lead, it might be even a warm lead coming in when doing the ads, or just organic, regular scheduled content that you have scheduled out that you created because you were super intentional. So social media has been a game changer, and without it, I wouldn't be here talking to you today.
Yeah, I can see it. The reason that I had reached out to you in the first place for this podcast is, you asked when we first got on this call, but we have never met in person, right? I've followed you on LinkedIn for a while, and I see your content coming out consistently, and it's very positive and inspirational, but also authentic. You know, it's not positive and inspirational to the point that it's just glossed over reality. And and so I have really connected with the type of content that you've been putting out. And it seems like you have kind of your personal brand pretty settled and established. So if you were to communicate back to me the type of content that you put out for your personal brand, tell me what kind of messages you're trying to get across to people.
I've learned, and especially as a marketer or marketing consultant or a consultant coming from a marketing agency, is I need people to be authentic in what they do. Stop with the hacks, stop with the schemes, stop with all these other things that you've seen work for other people, what you think works for other people. And I need you to be you. When it comes to it, the piece of content I'm putting out is helping folks understand that if they want to be where they want to be, they first got to grow, and they got to be uncomfortable by putting themselves out there. So I want to make sure that they trust me, and, you know, you don't do business with anyone you don't trust. And so I want to be able to make sure that I come across as real. And then of course, when you see me in person, I will close the deal, but you also will see very much that there's no change, there's no difference. And I try not, and honestly, I learned this from the Marine Corps. I'm always doing ceremonial stuff and everything else, but you had to be stoic. I could never smile and laugh and have a good time. And that's just not who I am. I might have the face for it, but that's not who I am. I like to have fun and enjoy myself. So I do my best to make sure that comes across over those channels.
Well, I think you succeed pretty well at that. I'm interested, as somebody who does post pretty consistently on channels, is LinkedIn your favorite platform? What's your favorite platform?
For business, LinkedIn, and well, I would say for the funnel is LinkedIn, and then for personal is IG, Instagram.
And on Instagram, are you a bit more of a consumer than you are a creator on Instagram?
I do more scouting and recon on Instagram. It is the place where probably the highest, most important reason is there's not politics as much.
Oh, isn't that nice? Isn't it so nice?
Oh my gosh. Yes. It's a wonderful thing. So there's no politics, but then you get to see folks really come out. And this, of course, was pre-TikTok. TikTok can be like, they can be, because again, I'm not following anyone, so I'm under the recommended for you. And it's got to be pretty specific. Of course, it's not Facebook's algorithms, but when it comes to Instagram, I'm pretty, and I follow Sports Center, and when the pandemic hit, I was really impressed with how they started to use their followers as content. And I think that's the beauty of social media. There is no comfort zone. You have to evolve. And ever since games started to come back on, they still continue to post those things, and not just as a top 10 play. So I believe Instagram gives you that ability to truly put out great content. Nothing of where you can write stories and all this other stuff, but the creativity comes out in a lot of people, and it's beautiful to see.
So you're still on Facebook a pretty good amount, though. I mean,
I am.
You're in the demographic, you're just,
but you have to be, Lacey, you have to be.
But I would agree that I feel like I'm almost on Facebook a little bit more right now as almost as an obligation, whereas Instagram is where I like to hang out. That's where I actually like to make connections and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I still post on my personal Facebook, which I just started back up doing again because it's just good business. I do get leads from Facebook. there are a lot of people that are on Facebook, maybe not as active. And the beautiful thing, it's no secret, because if you know it, if you're in there, that a lot of key decision leaders follow people, specific people on Facebook, and they're not on there for a long time. So your content will come up in their feed, which is part of Facebook algorithms to keep you scrolling. So I try to ensure that I stay top of mind with them by posting my little stuff that's still very businessy, not as personal. I rarely post anything personal, like my kids or my wife, or that. Truth be told, I'm a very private person.
I wouldn't be able to tell from your persona. You have that kind of really outgoing persona. But I mean, you're right. I've never seen on any of your content pictures of things that are more personal in nature. So
yes, I'm encouraged by my peers, my colleagues, to post more. I'm like, no, that's different. And yeah, it's one of those things to where you do gotta draw a line and set boundaries and say, hey, look, I do this for the invoice. I'm not doing it for pleasure.
I would like to see like a throwback Nathan Webster post. Like, give me Nathan Webster, a picture of you at like 16, 17, and like, what were you thinking about then versus what you're thinking about now? Give me a post like that. That'd be a good one.
I think I might just appease you.
I like to be appeased.
Yeah, I would say keep watching for it.
All right, good. So at Spry, we kind of have this vision that we're really pushing forward, this concept of social media for good. And to us, what this means is, there's a huge debate around, is social media addictive and toxic and bad for society as a whole? Is it a place where people can learn and connect and engage from anywhere in the world? I mean, both of those things are true. We are trying to really lean hard into the potential that social media has to be a healthy place for online communities to grow, for people to connect and to learn and to laugh. But part of that is facing the hard truths of what's bad about social media. So from your perspective, what's the very worst thing about social media?
A lie is more believable than the truth.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't require for you to, I know we can say, oh, where's the facts? Where's a fact checker? Or have you checked the sources? You don't need to do on social media. There's no need for that. And that is, I would say, the worst, because we're being that it's accessible to any age group. There's no warning. There's no liability. Technically there is, right? But there is pretty much, you participate at your own risk. And what happens in the aftermath, it happens. It's unfortunate because it has caused people to lose relationships, as in friendships, all the way up to losing their life over it. And it's not, it's all I think is, here, I'll say it like this, to where it's changing the game, because they have gamified a lot of things. And, for the early ones that remember Farmville, it's just
Candy Crush.
Oh my gosh. I know people dropping hundreds of dollars on that. Right. But, to where that became the way of life for a lot of things. And you look at Robinhood and their success, but you had that individual that unfortunately created suicide because he lost so much money, but it was also part of the platform and how they gamify things. That's part of social media, keeping folks on there. And there's a whole psychology around it, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but and the studies are out there, the reports are out there. But the worst thing about it, I feel, is that It's not great, just like anything else, if it's not done in moderation.
So you had two good points, I think, pulled out of there. One is the truth, right? That's one of the big pieces of like a bullet point on our list of what good means when we're talking about social media for good, is it being true. And, checking the sources is one of the best ways that people can at least try to make sure that what they're talking about is true. I've had multiple occasions where I've seen something that was shared that with a few clicks, I can see that this article is shared from a source that is in no way legitimate whatsoever. And half the things that I want to share, that I see that I want to share, when I go and look at the source, I find that it's not a source that I would share from and choose not to share. But like you said, it is, even that kind of thing is nearly gamified, because you see in your news section when you're scrolling through Facebook, right next to the headline is the share button. So you don't even have to read the article in order to feel inspired to, they're literally trying to get you to share just based off the headline.
Which, and we know it's called clickbait. Mm-hmm. So that's. Yeah, I mean, I can go on and on about that, because there's a lot of folks that, and I'm not saying formally or informally, but let's just say not educated to where you need to really make sure, double check, you can trust, but we say in the Marine Corps, verify, trust, but verify that it is what it says it is and not just what you want it to be.
Yeah, digital literacy, I think, is the piece that I wish we could have much more education on, for people to be able to understand how the algorithms work and how they can work against you, and how you can work in coordination with the algorithm to curate content that actually feeds you, instead of just being kind of, I imagine somebody on a, like a blow up floaty, but going down a river and being taken down the river instead of having an oar, like we need digital literacy, like we need oars going down a whitewater rafting expedition.
Yeah, it kind of takes me back a little bit, but more, this is not as big as, say, social media, but they used to argue in high school, and probably the argument is still there, is do you teach kids or do you teach students how to use spell check, or do you teach them to write? Mm-hmm. If you're going to have them do it in these platforms, do you help them with the grammar in these software systems, or do you just teach them what grammar is? Mm-hmm. And I think that's still not 100% sound. And yet, as you said, editing is one of your key things that we do. It is a huge knock on community colleges when the students transfer because they can't write. And which leads me back to the point of what you were saying in social media. It is social media language that is now, there's two things where it comes to social media. People don't know what truly is a credible source. And then their language of thinking that they're communicating is so botched, is crazy.
And then the second piece that you talked about there on some of the worst things about social media is moderation, right? People being able to actually set good boundaries and have moderation in their use of these platforms, because you're right. I mean, if you watch The Social Dilemma, which that movie or that documentary from Netflix was one that kind of launched Spry into this social media for good. We know that the platforms are literally programming us to continue using. It's an addiction, and it's a dopamine addiction. And if we're not aware of that and we're not in control of setting good boundaries, then it again takes us down this path of overuse, which burns us out. And my whole thought of all of this social media for good is like, listen, if we're going to be working inside this platform, and if we're going to be making money off of working inside this platform, then we better be putting some effort into making it a healthy place for people to be, which I don't have Zuckerberg's phone number. So the best I can do is talk to all of us users about just being aware and intentional, setting good boundaries, keeping your phone in another room at night, setting a timer when you go onto social media to make sure that you're intentional about the time that you're in there.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, so let's flip the script for a second. What about what's great about social media? What are some of the wonderful things about social media in your perspective?
So as an competitor,
I saw you say that. I like that. You are a lifelong competitor, aren't you?
I am. It eliminates excuses and forces you to level up. I can't remember what professor told me that said, look, at one point, he was holding a phone. He says at one point, and still is to this day, it's about $20,000 in your hand that you can now use right now to move in whichever direction you want to, because 20 years ago, that was 10,000, 20 to $50,000. And it's all been democratized into where it's in the palm of your hand. So I think when it comes to social media, and you can say that add the internet to it, now that's being indexed by the search engines, there's no longer an excuse for someone that wants to go out for their own. They don't have to like travel around the world to get all this experience. They can get it all right there and get it. And this, I will say the second thing is it gives people exposure to something that they may not ever seen. You can see, like, for example, private jets or sports cars or islands. You can just put in a hashtag and it's going to be on social media versus like a search engine. It will have more on social media. And you're like, oh, and at least for me, I will then say, Nathan, how can we get that? And that's where I believe social media is good, because there's nothing that's impossible unless you say, I can't do it.
Yeah, I think I've never heard of it said that way, but about the actual kind of monetary value of what you hold in your hand, the access that you have to free education, the access that you have to audiences that exist there. I've never thought about the real monetary value that we have access to through our phones, but that's a really brilliant way to kind of look at it. And it also brings, I feel like, a little bit of an added layer of responsibility, right? If you think of it that way and not just as like this, this tool that you're entitled to and that you've always had and that you use, it's a totally different mindset to think of it as this value that you have, and it's your responsibility to use it as you will. I like that. That flipped a script in my head a little bit, man.
Right. It's one of those things too that it has made me, especially let's just say at the end of the day, I want to be able to say, I know I have done every single thing that I can by either, which I grew up with the phone that was connected to the wall. There was no call waiting. There's no like, oh, you can't add a third line. It didn't do very much. So, and then if you did it, you had to be very intentional. You had to know the number. Now that phone is like, who cares if you're not listed in the yellow pages? But and I could go on and on. But at the end of the day, there's no excuse for me not to be where I want to be, because I'm the one that's saying no to myself. And so, being that I also have kids, my kids also help me, because of course they want to play games on it. But then when they're done playing their games, they're like, oh, I want this, or what about this? I'm like, go look it up. I had encyclopedias. And before encyclopedias, I had to go to a library. Mm-hmm. And I know I sound really old, but I would have loved to just search in a long keyword, long tail search for it. That there's no greater time to have access to resources as we do today. So, and social media has helped developed knowledge in ways that we couldn't have access to.
And thank goodness for it, because man, SEO back in the days of yellow books, when you just added yellow pages where you just added 3 A's to the beginning of your business name so you could be at the top of the list. At least we're far from there, you know?
Right? People ask why do they have the name triple A or acute this or ABC this? Because they want to be at the top of the list, because people are lazy. Right?
Oh man, I've been rebranding a company, helping them rebrand from, they had just like an A at the beginning of their name that made no sense in their business name, and they're like, "Okay, we finally need to do something about this." I'm like, "Yeah, we do. let's fix this."
Yeah. I think it's pretty funny how people still, as in business owners and some key leaders, they have this old brick and mortar mindset, which makes sense because, you know, you make these decisions based on your experiences. But social media has disrupted. And then also you got to give credit to Lyft, then Uber, you know, grab the idea, raise more money, to how Uber created more users on how it could not, which they don't want to be known as a ride sharing company. It's like media, and Zuckerberg is like the same way. So even though it's social media, they don't want to be known as just social media. They want to say like, this is a lifestyle brand. And so to that point, I think this is where the good thing about social media is it can be a lifestyle brand, and you can go about things to where you don't have to be under and basically be pigeonholed in one industry. Social media has opened the door to where you can be more than what you think you can do, but be careful at the same time, because as they say, the riches are in the niches.
I like that. Okay, so what about you know, I see this vision of social media for good, this world where people are using social media in a way that benefits people. They're building online communities. They're speaking the truth. They're in having really good quality equity and diversity and inclusion. Do you see that as a possibility too? Do you see that as happening and as something that people could continue to lean into and really make social media a place for good?
I think it has to be. It will be. I just like autonomous vehicles, we are just at the very beginning. In 100 years, when we're dead and gone, and who knows if my children will be around even that time, my grandkids will probably be the ones regulating all those things, because it will be a digital world. Because it is now. It's just we have a lot of older people that still just they don't grasp the concept of it. And it's because they want to stay analog and physical, and which is fine. But just like I tell my mom, I'm like, Mom, this is not hard. It's not rocket science. You're just making the choice not to want to learn it. So I think everyone that's coming up in these next 10 to 20 years, and also with the exodus of the baby boomer generation, I think we will see a magnification of what type of platforms are being used. I think, also the language of can't be on social platforms and employee handbooks will be modified, right? So the pandemic did hurt the gig economy, but the gig economy is still out there and still alive, and we are headed. All that to say, we are headed and still in that direction, because it's just the way it is. It has not only the technology, but also how we connect and how we do work. And this is a very capitalistic world, so it will be part of our ecosystem, because only a third, which is crazy, of people are on these social platforms. It's not even the whole world yet.
So what can we all be doing to be leaning more into social media for good?
Oh, God. That's $1 billion question, Lacey. there are certain things that we just need to call folks out on. I don't think it's so much as you unfriend. I think that's important too, but I think we need to rewrite. I do want to say, like, we need to unlearn some things, but before we unlearn some things, we need to rewrite, for example, what is a friend? You know, a friend is not someone you meet for the first time or you haven't connected. There's supposed to be something substantive there. So if you want to say it's a connection, I think some of those would need to be rewritten, and we need to then unlearn that a friend is not someone that you have had on Facebook. So we have to rewrite some of those things that are what we kind of just in passerby of, oh, it is what it is. You know, it's not that big of a deal. It is, because in teenagers, from anxiety to suicide, that has gone up, and we have to do a better job with that. I think the other thing that we have to do a better job in doing social media for good is really look at how we are allowing our younger generation just to consume it without having any discussion around it. And I know it's kind of simple, you know, of like doing it or not doing it, but it's just kind of like music. You know, if you're not listening to the words with other folks, it's interesting. So let me just jump to the bigger point on when it comes to businesses. Businesses fund it because of ads, right? It's free. We have to let folks know that their privacy is at risk when they are participating in these things. And we have to hold these companies accountable. So part of that is just making sure you understand what you are participating in, and hold these companies accountable, which also means people on the inside, they hold folks accountable. It's just not one person. There's several people that are responsible for, you know, as they say, you know, we won't do any evil. Well, how do we know? Where's the transparency? And that's what we have to demand, instead of just being users, because we are being used.
Very much so. Which is why personally, I am happy with the Apple updates of giving people the opportunity to choose whether they want to share their data for ads or not. You know, a lot of people and businesses and Facebook themselves, you know, threw a big fit about this change, that it would significantly impact small businesses. But if we're not smart enough to be able to adapt to people being able to have the choice whether they want to have ads served to them in this personalized way or not, then shame on us. That's how I feel. Okay, so
you preaching, girl. Preach that. Yell it from the mountaintops.
Oh man.
So the last question that I have brings us around to our personal relationships with social media. So, you know, some of us have great social media habits and boundaries, and some of us don't. Mine varies from day to day based on how I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, where I'm at in my cycle, if we're honest. So, for you, how's your relationship with social media? Do you think you have a great relationship? You have good boundaries? Or are there still things you need to work on? How you and social media do it, man?
That's a really great question. I think it's different for everyone. Oh man, it's a loaded question too.
Of course it is. It's digging deep, man. I'm going for it.
You know, because every platform has its own personality. And, you know, as I explain it to my customers or my clients, I say, hey, look, don't try to be all things to all people, right? Which is a classic saying, but it's just like the platforms. You can't put the same content out on all the platforms and think it's going to do well. It's just, that's not how the algorithms work. And part of the algorithm is, well, I keep saying algorithm because sometimes people don't realize it is an algorithm that keeps you on there, like you mentioned earlier. So my personal relationship is not giving them the algorithm that is for me. So I do my best. I'm not going to lie. TikTok murders the non-algorithm that is recommended for me, right? But I will also say it's not just the algorithm TikTok is doing. I think it's all the right tools that have from Friendster to Napster, Friendster, MySpace, right? That throughout the years, it's just gotten better. And being that, yes, I am an educator, we're told to color, stay in between the lines, and be creative. All of a sudden, they tell us to stop. Just shut up and do what you're told. Follow these rules. And then all of a sudden, you get into the workforce. We need you to be more creative. Well, we didn't really have a healthy outlet unless you went to IHOP or Elmer's and you take the coloring crayons and let me snatch this from my kid. But we finally were able to still live on our right side of the brain because we're all creators. We are all producers. We just have not had that canvas to do so, digitally speaking, until now with TikTok. So the personal relationship when it comes to social media for me is just making sure that it's not my life. It is a compliment, but it complements my life, but it's not me complimenting. It's not me adding to where, or how can I say it? Yeah, because
it's like it complements your life. Your life doesn't complement it.
Thank you. And when I was gonna, and also to say it doesn't complicate my life either. Mm-hmm. So that's what I really want to say. That was my hammer, and I messed up.
It complements, not complicates.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay.
So I've just seen that in both personal and business. And if you just take off the social media, which a lot of folks say, like, I can't do this any longer. I don't. And it's like, yeah, no one said you had to. So I think when people are, and I don't know if it's just generation, they think like, oh, I got to be popular, or I got to have a feed. I want to post all these cool things. I want people to know. It's like, no one really, like, if you really want people to care, just invite them over to your home, take them out for happy hour, like go out somewhere, do something. But I think that will be people's downfall, is not knowing that it is to complement, not complicate.
I saw this great, I think it was an Instagram reel of millennials explaining the real world to Gen Xers. Is it Gen Xers? What's the one that's youngest right now? That's Gen Z, isn't it? So millennials explaining the real world to Gen Z. It's like, okay, so it's like what you see on social media, but it's better. You can touch it, and you can smell it, and you can taste it. It's all the same things that you see when you're on social media, but it's real, and it's in front of you, and it's real life, and it's even better than what you see on social media. I'm like, this is great. It's it's true. How much time we spend searching for jets on Instagram, and it's like in real life, even better, man, even better.
Right, and then you were like, "Whoa, is that it? You spent? Am I done now? That's it?" Yeah.
Well, Nathan, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. This was really fun. Our very first conversation.
I know, it was recorded. There was pressure. It was fun.
I saw you with your stress ball over there.
It is. It's right here.
I love it.
I snatched this from my kiddo.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll include the links to all of your social media profiles and your website in our show notes, and push some posts out with this when it publishes as well. For those of you interested to hear more from Nathan, definitely connect with him on LinkedIn. I love all his content there. So you'll get a good stream of stuff if you connect with Nathan on LinkedIn as well. So everybody listening, thank you for your time. We appreciate you. We hope that you continue using social media for good, and that you always keep learning. We'll talk to you soon. Bye. Good job, good job, good job, good job.
This SprySpace podcast is brought to you by Spry Social Media Marketing, Digital Marketing Agility, edited by Chad Hinman and executive produced by Lacey Fott.